Thank you for inviting me. Delighted to be with you here and your audience.
I'm sure a lot of the viewers are going to know who you are, but for those who don't, can you just briefly talk about who you are, the work you do, and how it kind of all came about?
My real career work is, of course, being an author and illustrator for books. I've got hundreds of books published. I have been studying the spiritual path for more than 60 years now, and many, many wonderful teachers and so on. And never decided to publish anything about it. I always regarded that as a very personal, private kind of path. But through an incident with my dead father, who came one day and thanked me via a medium for all the information I gave him prior his departure, that sort of inspired me to maybe reach out to other young people because I was a teenager when I was looked for material and I couldn't find it. There was no internet at that time. And so I decided to make very short YouTube videos. Short, of course, because the attention span today is very limited. And in these YouTube videos, I am illustrating, I'm drawing basically how everything is connected. Here you see the victim, and there's somebody abusing him. This creates karma. Karma is stored in the Akashic records, in the repository planets, and eventually returns back to the sender. When you see that visually, it makes all so much more sense. At least it made a lot more sense to me. And I
Absolutely.
share these videos. They're very simple, very straightforward, and they are based mostly on material, on teachings and revelations that we have received for the last 50 years through a woman in Germany. Her name is Gabriele. You won't find her on the internet really, except a publishing house. Her work is all stored in the Sophia Library in Germany. And I've been studying this material and I found it the most profound, the most in-depth material, and also the one most easy to understand. If you go to some of these teachings, they are so difficult to read and understand. So it's a joy to read these very simple, clear, explained spiritual laws and how they affect us and what we can do to make our life more agreeable and become a more better person day by day on a slow step. So this in a nutshell. And I share this video. They are on my video site, lifeexplained.com, or you just punch in my name, Hans Wilhelm, at the YouTube channel, and there it comes out as well immediately as the Life Explained channel. And they are all free. There's no advertisement in it, and I do not ask for donations, and there's nothing to join. This is a total labor of love for those who are interested. I have zero interest to convince anybody that what I share is truth. If it's not truth for you, that's fine. I don't have to convince anyone. So if it works, it's great. If not, it's also great. So if anybody is interested to check it out, go ahead, look at any of these very interesting topics. There are now over 160 videos, and I'm sure there's a topic which you might be interested in, and look at it and see whether it works or not. That's in a nutshell.
And I will absolutely have the links in the description so everyone can easily find them. Your work, it really is just incredible. You've written plenty of children's books, and then your videos they're done in this way where whether you're 10 years old or 75 years old, you can follow along and understand these big complex questions, that we all have. Your work is truly beautiful. I love it. I love it. I can't say that
Because
enough.
I have to pass it on from where it comes. As Gabi says, God is ingenious simplicity. And
Mm,
when we understand that the whole spiritual path is a very simple path, it is our intellect, and many of the man-made spiritual paths are very complex and very detailed and so on, very complicated. That's our intellect, which usually wants to distract us from the spiritual
mm.
path. The spiritual path and what we have to do is very straightforward. There are no secrets. And I like that. And that comes across because the simplicity of the path, the simplicity of how to return back into a higher vibration becomes clear.
I want to reference your video, A Path to Freedom, because I think it summarizes so many important ideas and concepts, and it's I love it. And I think it will kind of set the tone for some questions that I have just in general. Um If you could, can we talk about absolute reality, kind of what that is, and then temporary reality? And because I want people to understand the birth of the ego, Earth, and why we come here.
Well, we go back to what where we come from. It's basically we all started with God's spirit and in a seven-dimensional reality, which means it's very difficult for us to understand seven-dimensional. We barely can manage the three-dimensional reality, but seven-dimensionally reality is the absolute reality where everything started, where all of creation is and was, and where we also came from. And what it is basically nothing else than energy. Everything is of energy and vibration. And we can speak of the highest form of energy and vibration. We can also equal it with love being the highest form of vibration. This is our true essence. This is where we came from. And in this absolute reality, we have got the central sun, which continuously births new universes, new planets, all inhabited by life forms of the mineral, the plant, the animal, and spirit beings. So all these universes in the absolute reality are totally inhabited, alive, and continuously expanding into infinity. It's difficult for us to comprehend. And when we speak about God's spirit manifesting itself in all this multitude of phenomena, then the God spirit, we can use other words for it to really grasp it better. We can use intelligence, awareness, the all power, the all love, selfless love. These are all other words which somehow characterize this God spirit. It consists of seven powers. And these seven powers, again, are transformed down to our understanding, our vibrational powers. The first one is order. The next one is divine will, then wisdom, earnestness, patience, love, and mercy. Again, these are just words which we have, so get a glimpse of what it means to be in these frequencies. Out of these seven powers, everything is existent in the absolute reality. This includes also the spirit beings, whom we call the angelic beings. These are the sons and daughters of God, as we may also call them. And this is a very happy and joyful life in unity, in harmony, and in peace. This is our true origin, our true way of living. However, like always, somehow there are some people or some souls who just were not too happy there, and they decided to leave this absolute reality to create their own universe, their own creation. They wanted to be like God. And the Bible speaks about it, the fall of angels, the Lucifer leading these angelic beings out of the absolute reality. Some revelations say that a third of the spirit beings left the absolute reality. And by leaving means nothing else that they were starting to have selfish, egoistic thoughts. And when you have a different vibration in the high love vibration, you automatically separate yourself away from this high love vibration. They basically expelled themselves through their egoistic views and egoistic goals. Because in the universe, everything goes by like attracts like. So they removed themselves out of this very high vibrational field and fell into what we now call the temporary reality. Temporary reality because eventually it will be dissolved back into the absolute reality. This is a little blimp, the little mistake which happened at the beginning of creation. So there now we have got all these spirit beings who have left the absolute reality, and they are now falling deeper and deeper away from the high vibration of love and going further and further away into a lower and lower form of vibration until right to the lowest level, which is matter. Matter is nothing than condensed light ether or condensed energy. It's also vibration. So there we have them now. Our many souls incarnate here onto the material universe, and that is another story and why we do this. And eventually, or the goal was actually to create their own universe, but they didn't manage it. On the way away from the absolute reality, they lost so much energy, they no longer could create a new creation on their own. So this is where we are now, unfortunately, in this world, that we are surrounded by beings, human beings, spirit beings, whoever, who continuously steal energy from each other. And we do this as well. where we just, because we feel basically empty on energy, we have given it all away, we have lost it, and now we try to get it through food, we get it through the likes on the internet, we got it to approval seeking, appreciation, we actually to outright stealing or grabbing or even taking over countries or war, etc. This is nothing, it's all fight for energy, for survival, for energy. And it has gone, the lowest level of this kind of fight is taking place here on planet Earth and maybe other spheres as well. But here we are now, and we are stuck in this fight for survival because we have no more energies left. And the return is very simple, just bringing back a remember of where we came from. And to return back, we have been given a very simple, that's why I say always God is ingenious simplicity. We have given the 10 Commandments. If we just only live by that, would be helpful. The Sermon on the Mount, very clear, love your enemies, etc., forgive and forgive. And the Golden Rule. If you just live by the Golden Rule, this world could have been overnight into a paradise. But we don't live that way. But these very simple laws, there's nothing extreme difficult or intellectually complex about it, could step us, and the only ones who will bring us back into a higher vibration, where we slowly, day by day, compare our daily interactions with other people, with life, with nature. How does they actually relate to the Sermon on the Mount, to the Golden Rule, to the 10 Commandments? And whenever I see something which it doesn't, I sort of change it and become a better person this way. So we don't need any huge esoteric teachings. We have been given it all. We just haven't applied it. And the least people who applied it, unfortunately, are the organized religions, who always speak about this, but they, of course, never applied the Golden Rule, or definitely not the Sermon on the Mount. So there we are. We are on our own here, actually, not really on our own. We have got the Christ in us. We have the whole universe in us. Christ said the kingdom of God is in us. So we have got all the powers and all the strengths. We have got our guardian spirit by our side. We have got so much help from the spiritual world to do these steps, but not until we ask for this help, apply this help, use this help, will they actually really do much for us, because they cannot interfere with our free will. If we are on a way of self-destruction and selfishness, etc., these divine spiritual helpers cannot interfere with our will. Only when we says, enough of this, I need help, help me. This is basically the extreme as we have it in the Alcohol Anonymous, that in the end you fall so deep that eventually you surrender to divinity. And then you can go and move up again. And this point, many of us have reached at one point or will reach as things may get more darker and darker. And it's good to know about this, and good to know that all the help is there for us to take and grab right now, ask for this help. And the rules are very simple. It is the 10 Commandments, Sermon on the Mount, and the Golden Rule, and to use the Spirit guide, Christ in us, God, whoever you feel comfortable communicating with, and make them move back to the light.
The term awakening is used quite a bit, and it can mean various things. I would love if you could sum up, again, I know it's a big question, but if you could sum up what that is and the importance of doing it kind of now in this moment.
Awakening for me, this is my personal interpretation, is to for the first time, realize of who I am. I mean, this is the old question, who are you? We also, the moment we discover that we are absolute perfect cosmic beings in our true nature, divine beings, and we have just lost that through our selfishness and self-centeredness, that I call an awakening. So this, wow, now I know I don't have to become anything, because I'm already the perfect being. I have just adopted a lot of negative programs. They served me temporarily. They gave me some pleasure, some joy, some superiority, etc. My ego felt great. But basically, they exhausted me, they drained me, and they caused a lot of misery, not only to myself, but to everybody else around me as well. So when I recognize who I am, then I can make the first step into the right direction, the first step to the whom I really am, that divine cosmic being, created in the image of God, if you want to say, if we want to use that phraseology.
The importance of doing it now in this time, can you expand on that?
First of all, I think we always had the same help. We always had the divine guardian spirits. We had got Christ. We had got God for the last 2,000 years, definitely always with us. And that has not changed. What has changed is that our life here on earth has become more and more desperate, more and more difficult. And I think to the point that eventually this planet will shake off those parasites called human beings and evolve into a higher dimension. And when that takes place, when planet Earth rises into a higher dimension, higher vibration, then a lot of these burdened souls can no longer incarnate to planet Earth to undo their karma. And so that will be difficult because they will then have to undo their karma, expiated in the spiritual realm, in the astral realms, which can be very painful and can be very long. The whole idea of planet Earth is, if anybody wants to watch my video on the amazing Earth School, is for the souls to undo their karma in the shortest time. Very short, this is not our home planet, and we only visit it just like a dream or just going to the movie for a very short time. And here we interact with souls of people from many different spiritual vibrations. They can be higher evolved, lower evolved, but they come together here, and very often they are with whom we have connections from previous lifetimes. And we have got the opportunity now to undo our karma through forgiveness or making amends or asking for forgiveness. That's basically, in a nutshell, why we incarnate here. And that period is running out. And therefore, it is important for us to use these times here. And we all have come at this time to this planet Earth. Uh, we all agreed to come here. We always come to agree with it. Nobody is pushed to be incarnating. We always wanted because we knew this would be the right time for us to do. And the right situations, the right the constellation, the right people would be incarnate at the same time. So, and at the moment, we have got this enormous increase of world population. From the year 2000, no, 1900, we had got 1.5 billion, and now we had got 8 billion. This is just like a rocket. The reason is because we are going most likely through some very, very difficult times. And this can be war, it can be inflation, it can hunger, whatever it is. I don't want to make it too dark and too sinister, but we have agreed to this because in these difficult times, it's an important, quick, painful period where we can undo a lot of karma, which would take eons and eons in the spiritual realms, in the astral realms. But we come here, we suffer quickly and intensely, and that karma is gone. And souls from all levels of purification are aware of the situation of planet Earth. And they clamor to incarnate here right now and have come here for the timing. That's why we have got this enormous amount of population here on this planet Earth, because they all want to undo their karma in the quickest time. And that's what we are facing there. And that's why we're facing also so many horrible periods in many countries and times, because the suffering there is so enormous. But anybody who is here is here not against their own free will. That is something we have to remember, that we are all, whenever we find ourselves in a very difficult situation, we must remember that most likely we have been aware of this prior our incarnation, because before we get born, we are shown on a sort of a feel the important elements of our future life that can change us and where we have to make certain decisions. The decision is always love and forgiveness. So the most hardest and difficult situation we are facing in this life, we knew beforehand. And knowing it beforehand, we have still said, yes, I want to incarnate. And here we are. So the difficult situation, which we do not like, which we hate, and which carry us, with us all the time, is not a surprise. It is just something which had to happen to us as an opportunity for growth. As Byron Katie always says, nothing happens to us. Everything, absolutely everything happens for us.
I'm going to have questions on thought complexes, just so you know where I'm going with it. But yeah, if you could talk about where, how astral beings and aliens and extraterrestrials, how they fall into this.
Everything is very simple and straightforward. As I have mentioned, a large number of pure spirit beings left the absolute reality. They were no longer in the high vibration of love and fell down to create their own creation. And in that fall, several stopped at a certain level. They did not go all the way deep down. Others got worse and more selfish and more selfish and more selfish, which is the opposite to love, selfless love, until they landed up in the lowest form, which is the astral spheres, which is the planet, where the material universe. This is where we are, the three-dimensional. So we must imagine there are basically seven major layers in the temporary reality. And they are filled with universes, they are filled with planets and stars, they are populated with all these fallen angels, maybe you call them. And this goes on for millions and billions of years, and there are many forms, deformation, there is evolution, and whatever can happen. So we have got a lot of space brothers up there, which are not in planet Earth, on different levels of consciousness and development and evolution. So they exist there. So these are all fallen angels for the most part, but many on the higher regions are actually presently trying to help the planet Earth here. These are our space brothers, we call them. They are the alien with spaceships. They have all different form of spaceships. They are here because they also know about the changes going to take place on planet Earth. And there can be some very drastic one. And they want to help not only the human beings, but also the plant and animal kingdoms and save and transform them if necessary. So we have got enormous amount of aliens who are standing by, hopefully that we don't screw things up too much, like atom bombing, destroying our planet here, which would have tremendous implication to all the other planets surrounding. So they are the helpful ones right on the top. And if you are on the top, on the highest vibration, close to love, naturally you are still a loving kind of entity and a caring entity. But when you come lower and lower and lower, and to the lowest level, you have got the extreme selfish one. And now we are talking about former angelic beings, perfect spirit beings, who have given up all the energy, have had nothing left except the little God spark which keeps them alive. They are the ones who steal and rob and clear, etc. And they are here among us. These are a lot of earthbound souls which we do not see. This is earthbound souls that don't have to be necessarily vicious and gripping, but for the most part, they are living here and living through us, for instance. And if anybody wants to see it visually in my video on soul possession, you see how these souls can actually find an alcoholic, for instance, and they attach themselves to the neck area, and not only one, sometimes two or three, they hang there like grapes and give this victim, so to speak, constant thoughts. You need another drink, you need another drink. And then they go and drink and they live the alcoholism through these people, through these, to their own victims, so to speak. Again, it's a form of energy they want, etc. And the energy are some other. In many ways, they suck the energies from us. So they can only do this if we have got like-minded vibration and tendencies in us. So don't be afraid of these souls. They don't do anything to us if we have no weaknesses or dormant weaknesses like this. They know exactly whom to attack and whom to suck the energy from. And then there are other also alien areas on very low level who can also be destructive and negative. The entire temporary reality is filled with souls of different degrees of maturity, different degrees of vibration, and they're the bad ones and well as the good ones, all kind of levels. As Dolores Cannon always says this, you think you just got it worked out, and then someone else comes something and tells me all the different, totally new story. It's amazing. It's a convoluted universe we are living in, a temporary convoluted universe. It is not as organized, beautiful, harmonious as the absolute reality where we come from. And these are basically the entities which can affect us. And most importantly, I would say the earthbound spirits who can possess people And that is something, a subject which is a very interesting subject to look into my video. You find more about it because a lot of people suffer from very emotional, disturbing situations. And it could be, it's not always the case, it could be a spirit possession. And there are people here on this planet who are doing spirit removal, and they help the spirit to get the spirit free, because that spirit, as nasty, as selfish as they are, is also a child of God and deserves love like you and me. But for those who don't need to know how to handle them, better stay away from them. But others who are willing, as a warrior, to go and speak with them and says, "Come, make some sense. I will bring you to the light. This sucking this energy from this human being is not the way you want to go, because you can get everything you want in higher spheres." And there are people doing that. And I had on my video site, I think I have one interviews with two people who do this. I found it very, very interesting of how they uh, detach these souls from human beings. I also like to say we do all have that Christ spark in us, the Christ healer. So we can really ask the Christ within us to help us to get rid of, whether it is a spirit's possession or whether it's an illness, whether it is whatever it may be which bothers us. We do have this incredible helper in us. When we trust it, it will be there, it will be help us. But Christ does not heal the body. Christ only heals the soul. And when the soul is healed, then the energy of life can flow through the soul into our body. And the next step is then that our body gets also healed. But Christ always considers the soul, because the soul is the one which returns back to the pure heavens, not our body.
Something in particular that I really want to talk about is the law of attraction, because I think there's a lot of um, I think there's a lot of misguidance and misunderstanding around that.
Well, the law of attraction is definitely a universal law. This also applies in the absolute reality. That's why the certain number of souls spirit beings could remove themselves from that high vibration. That law exists. It's definitely the case. And if we become in a certain vibration, we also attract the very same thing. If we are negative and so on, we can attract those negative entities, which I just mentioned earlier, because it's all up to our own vibration, what we attract. Now, of course, in the secret and so on, it was sort of mentioned that once we decide we want to have this villa by the sea and we want to have this great sports car and this lovely partner, all we have to do is to sit on the chair and imagine already having it, so that we send out the vibration. In a way, it may work in some cases, but from my knowing and understanding is that our conscience or our higher self is not really helping here if we are aiming very strongly for something which is not really the meaning of our lifetime here on earth in this lifetime. We can get it if we are working hard on it. It's possible, but that all these things come from our ego. And that can distract us. If we want to have a certain kind of house and so on, and we want to suddenly live on the beach or somewhere else because we have it in our head, this is what we want. In truth, maybe we should live to Denver and meet the partner of our life and live there happily ever after as a teacher. That may be just the alternative. But if we focus too much on these material things, we are drifting away from our true nature and our true reason why we are here. And that's why I say it's more important what we become, not what we have. When we focus instead of who we are and how we can let go, it's all the question of letting go of all these programs, negativity, it's negative thinking. We automatically become more and more of who we are. And it is only our ego, which always wants to make us unhappy, which continuously tells us, oh, I must have so many likes on my Instagram. I must have that car, that house, that partner, that neighborhood, and so on. And there's nothing wrong having these things. The problem is attachment. So if you inherit it, if you get it, if your partner brings it into the marriage, enjoy it. Don't sort of suddenly run in sackcloth and so on and be that beggar. No, enjoy what life gives you and be grateful for it. but do not be attached. The moment we are attached to it, we want to control it. And then we fear the lack of it. These are the three components of our ego. It uses us through the fear of lack and attachment and control. So that's why all our possessions have this danger in us that we can fall totally for our ego. We don't like to lose anything what we have. The comfort level is so strong because whatever we fear in life is basically always the fear of losing some comfort. This can be our fear of war, it can be fear of a divorce, it can be fear of a job. It's a comfort level that we are afraid to lose. And comfort is often linked to the ego. It's not to the higher self, which usually wants to progress and wants to move us forward into a new direction and explore life even more so. So it's a very complex thing, but I think in my video on why the secret didn't work, I explained it in greater detail. So let's just focus on who am I? And what does this higher true self, how do I think it is? And what does it want me to be? And where should I be? And what are the qualities that I should develop again in my life? And there I have mentioned at the beginning already the 7 powers of God, the 7 like order, will, wisdom, earnestness, patience, love, and mercy. Maybe these 7 qualities are the ones why we are here, to develop the divinity again. Order means bringing order back into our life. The disorder, which is everywhere, also disorder in our thinking program, but the disorder on our desk, in our life, etc., in our cabinet and cupboards, bring order into everything. The next one is will, divine will. What is my self-will, ego will, versus divine will? Divine will is always for the benefit and love for everyone. While the ego will is only for me, 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 me. And then the next one is wisdom. Wisdom is basically meaning I learn to apply all the spiritual stuff which I've studied so long and do them in my life and work them. And so we slowly progress. But it all starts with the level of order, which most of us are in, and I myself are still on that level, to bring order into my life. And that is the right direction. So we do have, again, the 10 Commandments, they come and so on, they very clearly, they do not mention the level of order, but they are the tools to flourish in the level of order.
Can we dive into thought complexes a little bit more? Because I just want to stress on the importance of understanding thought in general and how it creates our reality. And I just love this concept of thought complexes and the way you explain it in terms of it being alive. I think it's beautifully said. So if you could talk about that.
We're coming back to the basic thing, which I said, that everything is nothing but energy and vibrations. And our thinking pattern is nothing else than also then vibrations and energy. And we think them, and these things become like bubbles around us and with us. And the more we think them, the more intensely we give them energy. And the more and more they eventually become alive, entities themselves. They don't have a soul, but they are living entities. And they live for a while. And they are usually, if we, for instance, have a negative thought, like, for instance, what can we think of? It was a sort of a hateful thought to our neighbor, for instance, someone in a colleague. We hate our colleague because whatever. That thought is very strong, and that flows now through the office, and someone else hates the same person as well. That energy attaches itself, and they become sort of a group of thought patterns. And that thought patterns can be directed to that person whom we thought was bad or we think is evil, and could affect that person if that person has like-minded vibrating thoughts in them. It cannot affect them if they are totally ignorant of their care and it's not true. But if there's something similar in them, that can affect them, and they suddenly can also start thinking of thoughts of revenge, etc., and etc. So this can be sort of like a chain reaction. It can produce awful stuff. Next time she probably goes to the boss and he tries to give us notice. And so it can come back in a very negative way in many ways. So I have the example of how a negative thought can actually become a bomb or a rocket and actually eventually destroy a whole country. It all starts with a thought. Everything that we see started with a thought. Every tree, every element, every chair, every computer, everything as a Zoom program we are using right now started with a thought. And that's a thought. Every thought wants to materialize itself, wants to become matter again. So that's why a thought, the architect starts with a thought and then eventually makes the sketches, and the sketches then goes to the builders, and the builder builds the house. That's a typical development of a thought. A thought wants to materialize. And if we have got negative thoughts, that is not a good thing, because whatever we send out comes back to us in this temporary universe, not in the absolute reality. There is no cause and effect, there is no karma. We only have it here in this temporary reality. That's why when I said earlier, these 12 laws, which include the law of karma, is only limited right, because the law of karma does not apply in the absolute reality. Here, whatever we send out comes back to us, not as punishment, but only as a learning tool, so that we realize that what I did to this person was not loving. Now I get it back. Now I know how it feels. Let's not do that anymore. That's basically the ideal version of self-recognition and moving forward.
I would love if you could talk about how to listen to animals and plants and minerals. And you do have a video on this, and I would just love if we could dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this comes all from teaching from Gabriele. So, and I'm learning that myself. I'm having had some wonderful experience with it already, but I wish I would do it more often when I go to nature. But it becomes no easier having spring here, and the garden is developing again. Can't wait to be outside and do some work. But the idea is that God, let's put it that way, everything is communication. I said earlier when we described God's spirit being and intelligence, love, etc., it's also communication. The activity of divine spirit is communication, the sending, receiving, sending, receiving, sending, receiving. So when we walk through nature, everything, absolutely everything is communicating with us, is sending to us, and we are sending it out as well. Unfortunately, mostly we are sending out our self-centered thoughts into the, not even aware of where we are going, because we are in a different world in our thought patterns. But the plants and animals who do not have the thoughts as we have, they send themselves out. They send the energy, the divinity, the divine energy in them out to whoever is passing through. So we are continuously receiving this incredible vibrational thought pattern from the plants, from the animals, even from the wind, from all the elements, etc. Everything is here to communicate with us. Everything is here to tell us about God in a way, to tell us the beauty about love. Or it can also be the pain if an animal is suffering, for instance, etc. That of course wants our help. This of course is another form of communication. But for the most part, the nature is in a jubilant form and really wants to share this joy with us. And all we have to do basically stop these thought patterns and stop and listen. And it is more a listening from within, not with our ears, but with the inner ears, and also watching with our inner eyes, which means we look at the flower not from the outside, but we behold the flower. We take in the entire essence of the flower and see what the flower wants to tell us. Because the essence of the flower is in us. The essence of every tree is in us, of every stone, of every mineral, of every animal, but is in us. Why? Because in the absolute reality, we evolved from the atom to the mineral, plant, animal, and nature being spirit kingdoms. We went through all these evolutionary stages ourselves. So all the animals, all the plants, etc., we have been at an earlier stage in our evolution. And therefore everything resonates within us because we have been there. And we see that the animals are our brothers, little brothers and sisters. They are creation by God on an earlier stage than we are. And so are the plants, and so are the minerals. They are all on the evolutionary stages. And we have been there, and that's why it's easy for us to communicate with us, because they are not strangers. We have been there. They are just like stages of our own being. And when we open to us, we will receive the joy, the energy, and what is more important, that we also get messages which we need to hear at the moment. I remember one morning I walked to the garden and I was having breakfast with some friends, and I'm very critical about some of them and so on. And in my head already had a dialogue running what I was going to say and how the one is and whatever. So the typical kind of human dialogues. So I looked at this flower thing of lots of what is it, Black Eye Susan, and they just looked at me and said, and he says, "Oh, stop, look at them." And I to behold them says, "Look, we all love each other. We all the same. Why can't you do this?" I mean, very simple. This message, this is whether it came from the flower, whether it came from my higher self, I don't care. But I needed to hear that, because that changed totally how I approached my breakfast later on. Suddenly I learned to love them all. It was fine. Instead of running with my program. That's why nature is here to help us all the time. And we have, as I said earlier, the path back to home is actually easy, because if we are open to all the helpers around us, it's astounding. It's much easier, of course, if you live with nature again. In the city, it's a bit more difficult, particularly where, as we detached or spoken earlier about all the thought complexes, which are just like a sewage hanging in those streets of a city. And when we walk around, we can easily be affected by anyone and attach them to us and so on. So a city is a little bit more difficult. It's a very unhealthy way of living in a very dense and loud city. But for some people, that's the only option, and that is their choice, and that is exactly where they probably may need to be to meet the right people interaction to do whatever their soul has planned for them.
What is your favorite memory or moment in time, or just something that really stands out for you this lifetime?
There were some wonderful ones there. But I think the one thing which just comes to my mind is my wedding day. Yes, quite a surprise to myself. And it was a lovely, lovely, daring thing for me to do. I didn't want to. Or, no, I mean, I not to married to that woman, but I never thought myself getting married. I had too much fun not being married. But eventually it happened with the right woman, and 25 years bliss. So I think that was one of my better choices in life. That was a lovely, lovely this thing which came to my mind. Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know. And I know you have a beautiful mind. And if there's anything big that's on your heart that's standing out, just anything that you think would really just benefit and move the audience.
I can only speak from my own experience, what is really has been powerful for me in my, since I basically learned to, that there is another existence than just this material world. The first thing is I'm never alone. That is a very powerful, that I'm never, even in the darkest moment, I'm never alone. Help is always there. I only have to ask it. I think that is very powerful. We never have to carry anything on our own. And whenever we can't do it anymore, have done all other things which we should do and have done all the stuff which we should do, then we just surrender and leave it up to God. Thy will be done. That sentence is there for a good reason in the Our Father. Thy will be done. And when we surrender to thy will be done in these moments, we will feel a relief, and we feel, then we let the higher self, the higher guidance take over from here, so that we then accept whatever may come. And it may not be what we want, what we think we should have. It may be always something much better, because it is more true for what we really need. That's the one thing. The other thing is, of course, gratefulness. The second, but be grateful for everything, every moment in your life. Because the moment we are feeling grateful, thankful, our whole chemistry and our brain and our body change instantly. And it changes for the better. And when this changes, everything is easier for us to manage. If we really, this old song, count your blessings one by one, it's always there. Thank you for the chair I'm sitting on. Thank you for the people who have created it. I'm always going, when I'm going to the doctor office or something like this, I'm always thanking all the people who invented these incredible instruments, who do these this stuff which wasn't possible 100 years ago, and suddenly they can help us in an instant. I mean, I had a cataract surgery. Suddenly I can see better than I ever saw before. I mean, it's a miracle. Whoever dared to develop this. So there is so much to be grateful for. And the last thing is that the only way forward is love. That is the thing. Love is the only thing to way forward with. So that is sort of my 3 points, which I try to, which are sort of the basic foundations for me in my day-to-day life. Never alone, gratefulness, and love is always the answer.
This was lovely. I cannot thank you enough for doing this. I really can't.
Oh, thank you, Ellie. I'm listening to myself. I'm quite surprised what I know. I'm so little I'm doing. So I have to learn, or I have to catch up what I told you. Yeah,
Oh,
this is life. We all slip sometimes once in a while, but we always have to catch ourselves and step forward. It's always a question, how often do we get up when we fall down? That is one more time when we fall down, so that we get up again and move on. We all make mistakes, we all screw up at times, but the main thing is there is a goal there, and that goal is bliss. That goal is joy. That goal is peace and harmony, and that awaits all of us eventually.
thank you. Truly, truly, truly.
Thank you, Ali, for inviting me. I really enjoyed that. I wish you well with your podcast.
Thank
And who
you.
knows, maybe we meet again one day.
Yes, I would
All
love
the
that. Thank you so much.